Hi, I'm Durucan. Welcome to People and Changing Organizations, the next chapter. This is where we talk with strategic HR leaders about transformation, innovation, and what it really takes to change an organization. Fresh insights, new ideas, real experiences. This is the future of work. Today, we are joined by someone who brings a truly unique perspective. Our guest, Artrell Williams, is an experienced learning and development professional whose background spans performance coaching, organizational learning, and leadership development. After years in corporate L&D, he made the bold move into independent consulting, helping organizations identify performance gaps, design meaningful learning experiences, and create environments where people can truly grow. In this episode, we'll explore his journey, the transitions he made along the way, and his views on what it really takes to build learning-centered cultures in a changing world. Let's begin. I guess before we dive into our main discussion, could you start by sharing a bit about yourself, your professional journey, and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be on the platform with you today. We met a little over a year ago now, right, at a conference in New Orleans, and had the opportunity to really hang out and get to know each other on much more a deeper level than the superficial than people get to meet at conferences. A lot of times when you do meet someone at conferences, there's this general banter that you have, what do you do? And tell me about what services you provide to the world or whatnot. But as you and I had the opportunity to really just get to go to different places, restaurants and bars and clubs, just the different things that New Orleans has to offer, I really got an appreciation for who you are as an individual, your journey to get to where you are as an entrepreneur, but also as the person that came to that conference to enjoy New Orleans, despite the conference and the work that had to go along with it. So we had a lot of great times in a short period of chronological time.
We did. That was about 18 months ago, give or take, wasn't it? It's almost like running up to, over a year. Yeah, year and a half, give or take. Yeah.
So in that time, we had the opportunity to share a little bit about one's journey. And since then, I've moved into entrepreneurship. I was laid off from my manufacturing role. I was the learning leader for a tire manufacturing organization and have since moved on from there. That company no longer exists right now. I think there's some plans to evolve in a different way, but there were some business decisions that had to be made in order to allow that organization to evolve into the future. And I think part of that just had to do with relocating from Buffalo, which is where it was located at the time. I decided then that as opposed to going back to corporate and trying to do something similar, because of all the experience that I've had in L&D as a facilitator, designing training, understanding the needs of organizations across multiple industries, understanding how to engage with people across different geographic areas, I know that I knew enough to strike out on my own and do this independently. So that's what I've been doing over the past 8 months now, is really understanding what entrepreneurship looks like. There's a lot in common to what I was doing when I was in corporate, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't have to worry about. And just before you and I got on here, because what listeners won't know is the conversation that took place before you and I started the recording here about the IT issues that I had this morning. And I was just thinking, I'm like, wow, IT is one of those things that I didn't have to think about at all. When I thought about it from a much different lens, right? Because I would just call IT. IT was a place that you could go and they fix your problems, and you get frustrated with them because they can't fix it as fast as you think they should be able to fix it. And then today I had to try to do some things on my own troubleshooting. And then I reached out to Microsoft, which didn't get me any further, but it helped me feel better because I realized that after speaking to the Microsoft people, The problem was much more difficult than I would have been able to resolve on my own. So with that, it's like, okay, they can't fix it either. So I'm not the dummy here. And eventually I made it back home to be able to do this stuff in a comfortable space for me. But as an L&D person who loves facilitation, I really enjoy the engagement with people. When we deliver training, though, somebody has to design it. And so I
Yeah.
have gotten a lot deeper into the weeds when it comes to designing learning experiences, whether it be workshops, sessions, virtual, in person, the many different modes through which we deliver our messaging. And I've really gotten to dig deeper into the consulting piece of it too, because at a point in my career, I was just told what to design, so we didn't have to think much about what went into the conversation. Like, how is it that this is the need that we're addressing, and who determined it, and whose buy-in did we have to get, and all of that. And that's where I am now, where I'm speaking with these organizations leaders, finding out what the gaps are, what their needs are, and coming up with solutions that help them fill that. And it feels great. It's just some of that minutia that we didn't have to worry about, some of the paperwork that goes along with it, putting together statements of work and things like that in order to
Yes.
be able to get to the part that we really enjoy. But that's the full experience of consulting in L&D, at least. Not specifically the entrepreneur piece of it, but the consulting in helping us to create solutions for organizations and then implement those solutions. And I even enjoy coming back on the back end and measuring the success of those solutions. So it's been a fun ride. It's been a really fun ride. And so the journey over the past 25 years of being an entry level person who moved into supervisor roles and then eventually into L&D roles, where I was communicating and trying to get buy-in for learning in general, these concepts that we have to bring to people, whether it be leadership development or change management, all of these things that we have to convey to individuals within organizations. Now I get to do the whole thing, and it's a great ride. It's a fun ride.
That's quite rewarding, isn't it? That whole when you say that, as you said, when you get to have your fingers in the pie, so to speak, and also almost orchestrate. As I say the word orchestrate, I think you have a story to reflect back on this at another event that you took part in, which was fascinating to see that footage. So we could elaborate on that next. But to orchestrate that thing end to end, like you say, blending and merging every single one of those pieces of past experience together, and the impact that creates and the value that generates. And as you say, if you're fortunate enough to also to go back and also review and recap the value that's been kind of created on the back of it, is satisfying. Yeah, it's quite satisfying, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, do you want to talk about this experience that you had around orchestration, like literally, actually, quite literally?
You know what? You saw the footage,
It's
and
amazing. We
there's
could patch
something
this up
about it
somehow.
that stood out to you, right? There's something about it that stood out to you, but there's a much longer story that I don't even know if you or anybody else really cares about.
Go
So,
for it. I always care
well,
about it. Come on.
I was I was really, really excited when I found out that the keynote speaker, whose name escapes me, I know she was Sarah, and she was a conductor of the Minnesota Philharmonic Orchestra. She was there in Orlando, though, working with a group of people from that area. So I wanted to hear what this orchestra leader had to say. She had accomplished a lot in her professional career, and I was excited about her keynote address for that morning at the Training Magazine conference in Orlando. I get up and I go there and I hear this amazing keynote speech that resonated with me because I used to play music. I was in the marching band and concert bands and symphonic bands, like all of that stuff when I was growing up. And I've stopped playing, but the music is still within me. At the same time, I have been having conversations about how those experiences as a musician in my younger years have influenced who I am as a professional in my adult life. And one of those things that has stood out to me is the way that music can help provide us with so many leadership lessons. And she really hit on all of it in her keynote speech, speaking about the importance of clear leadership and being on the same page and the language of leadership. There were so many concepts that I hadn't really dug deeply into when I thought about music and in my leadership. However, she put it into a great package. And so at the end of her speech, she wanted to illustrate how, as long as you understand the language, as long as those participants there, which in that context were the members of the orchestra that they had brought in, that when you understand these concepts and you know that this is the leader and the leader is here to do their job and we're here to do our jobs. And she had never conducted this group before, but she said, because I speak the language, because they respect who I am, watch when I do these things. And she conducted right there in front of us. And then she asked for volunteers from the audience. This audience was about 800 people. So Artrell, sitting maybe about a quarter of a way back, really had no way to get from where he was to where she was for this surprise invitation to come up and conduct. But it was that very moment where I realized that this was the one thing in life that I really needed to do. I didn't know how important it would be for me to have that experience until I saw someone else get it. And so she asked for these volunteers. She chose somebody in the front row. That person went up and they did what she asked them to do. But I could tell that this person really wasn't from music. He was listening to what she told him, and she just he waved his arms and whatnot. So then I'm sitting here like, wow, this guy just lived out my dream in front of my eyes. And I can't believe it. And she asked for a second volunteer, and she chose some other person that was close to the stage. That person went up, and maybe they had a little bit of musical knowledge. It doesn't really stand up, but I know that I inside felt like I could have been doing something better. Not as a competition or anything like that, but I understood that language that she spoke about enough to be able to really give a valid illustration of the points of her keynote message. So that second person sat down, and I'm thinking to myself, well, two opportunities right there before you. You just missed them because you were too timid. You didn't do what it takes to take advantage of that moment. And so I was totally surprised when she asked for another person to come do it. And everything went dark around me. And for a moment, there was just me, the conductor, and the stage. And I had to get there. But my legs stood up on their own. Like it's just a completely visceral reaction at that point where I stood up and I started walking to the stage. And I didn't know if anybody else had their hands up. I didn't know if anybody else had started to walk there. All I knew was that this path had been created as the sea of people parted. And I had to walk around seats and things like that, but none of that registered. I just went straight to the stage and had the opportunity to conduct this small group of musicians right there in front of everybody. So that's what you saw in the video, is this whole experience of me beating myself up for a little while in that lesson that I was learning, that you can't always just sit back and defer to others. There are some opportunities, and I grew up being considerate. I apologize to 799 other people in there who wanted that opportunity if that was the case. But I also realized that there are times where we have to seize the moment, as they say, right? If I can throw as many cliches out there as I can, that was my one shot.
And that would be proud.
Right. So I just had to get out there and do it. And I went up
Excellent.
and I did it. And I am still appreciative of that opportunity today. Um, I was shaking like a leaf. If somebody could really analyze that video, you'd probably see that my hands were doing this thing. And it wasn't about me being in front of people. A lot of times people think that Artrell likes to be the center of attention, and I don't. I just don't mind it as much as many other people do, but I
That's a great
appreciate
way of framing it.
experiences. Yeah,
Love,
I really
love it.
appreciate those experiences. And there are times where when I know that I'm super uncomfortable in the situation, I'll run towards it because I'm trying to get over that fear. I don't want to shake like a leaf when I'm in front of people because being in front of people is what I do too, but it's what I aspire to do more and on a broader scale. So
Yeah.
when I get opportunities like that, now I get to justify myself for anybody who's listening to your podcast and say Artrell hates the attention. Like, it really isn't about when I get on a comedy stage, when I get in front of a classroom full of people, it's not about Artrell thinking that his voice is the most important one in the room or that he deserves to be seen. It's more about me taking advantage of an opportunity to be able to share something with those people who were there that might be able to learn from it. And there are many times where you'll see me in those positions where I am shaking like a leaf, but I also know that I have to get over some of those fears, and that's what I'm doing up there.
Yes, yes. I think you framed it really well about a minute ago. I love that. I love that framing. And also, having seen this video footage that we're chatting about, and if possible, we'll get patched up, and it will be it will evidently make a whole lot more sense, or at least some more sense to some others. I think what's very evident in that video is how much you are enjoying yourself. You're absolutely loving it. Like, again, I don't know the volunteer number one, volunteer number two, and I'm taking your word for it as to how they kind of came across slash performed, but you are absolutely having a blast. Shaking maybe deep inside, but I think outside it doesn't show. Outside you see a man that's absolutely seizing the moment, like you say, and loving every second of it, and enjoying it. So brilliant. Love that. Love that. That's really, really good. Um, and I want to go into two things before we move on. Um, One thing that remind me of your episode on stage, in that was or in New Orleans as well.
That one was in Orlando.
Orlando, sorry. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So there is a gentleman, a Mexican gentleman called Felipe Gomez, and he was on stage on World Business Forum last year in New York. And it was quite special, actually. So, as a keynote speaker, what he had done was, and you could take a note and look him up separately. Felipe Gomez. He combined a keynote speech with playing a piano because officially or originally he's a piano player, he's a pianist. But he just kind of blended that into leadership, like you were saying, and drew these connections and quite a moving experience. How he crafted something and packaged something so beautiful and so moving with actually some serious substance underneath as well. And I could try to dig out some materials around that and then maybe attach it to this podcast as a background info. Um, so that's something else as well. Okay, fine. So onwards and upwards. Shall we move on to now what you do these days? Do you want to give me like a real example of how you're helping your clients on a, I don't know, week in the life of, or I don't know, a month in the life of Artrell, and what does that look like? What are you working on? And yeah, take us into some reality.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that I were at a different phase in this journey to tell you what it's like inside the organization. I've been in the organization for so long that that's where most of my experience comes from. But now I'm outside of the organizations, and my days are trying to get back into organizations. um, Ensuring that the messaging is clear enough about that I understand the gaps that they may have and the problems that are keeping some of these organizations leaders up at night, but B, also know solutions that can help them address those gaps. And this is through training and development, through coaching, through other experiential learning that will allow their employees, their teams, their leaders to really understand the impact of their behaviors and actions. You know that a lot of times people say training is the problem, or training will be the solution. Just give some training and that will fix our problems, that will fix the individuals. And we're not able to fix anything, right? We can lay a foundation, we can give them some information. And it's really about the way that the organization chooses to go about the time after the learning event is done.
Right.
You don't expect to go to the gym once and come out ripped.
Perfect analogy. I love this,
Right.
actually. Yeah.
So,
I'm going to take this, actually. I love this. Yes. And you're right. More often than not, the expectation is you go to the gym, or, you're being sent to the gym as an employee, i.e. training. And then, management is kind of looking at your abs. It's like, how ripped is he? Come on. I'm not seeing much.
right.
Yeah, just had one session, mate. It's only been a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the expectation. And so what we're doing is like that initial professional, what do you call them? The personal trainers, right? It's like that initial dialogue that you have with them where they may be able to help you walk away and say, okay, your challenge is here. You have weak core strength. And so here are ways that you can address that, but you got to do something perpetually once you leave this session. You, on the other hand, have great core strength, but your arms aren't that great. You over there have very, very powerful legs, but here's some other challenge that you need to get over. So everybody in that classroom has a different challenge. And what we're trying to get them to do is to support one another on that journey. And a lot of times leaders will allow their teams to walk away from the training, but not encourage them to come together. Because if you did that when you left the gym, if you say, okay, now that I've got this group of people who are on a similar journey, but for different reasons, I need help with my legs and I'm good with my legs, but this person he's good with his arms and I need help with my arms. So they'll work together. I'm going to ask him because the trainer's no longer there. There's nobody else to help guide us. We just need to know who has what skills to be able to support one another. And then you walk away and do it. And if you've got somebody on the outside saying, hey, I'm going to give you guys time to get together and talk again. And by the way, afterwards, can you tell us what you've been working on? Because that's what's happening in the organizations is they want to know that you are improving. They want to know how you were able to apply what you learned in that training session.
Yeah.
When we can facilitate that, so the facilitation continues beyond just that learning experience that they have. And if the organization doesn't allow the facilitator to remain in the mix, then it's on them to continue to do that. And if they follow up, if they follow some type of a sustainment plan that lets the employees who went to that training know that they valued my experience there, they really do want us to learn from that, and they're continuing to support us. This aligns with my success plan that my supervisor and I spoke about in my annual review, right? So my supervisor said, these are some things that would help get you to the next level. And now they're asking me questions that show that they care about whether I actually move to that next level. So it wasn't just a single learning event. Now this is part of an overall experience and culture change that helps not just me as an individual, but everybody. But
Yes.
you already know that time after time, we go to training and then we hear nothing else about it. Nobody seems to care what we learned. And the human brain is going to forget some 80% of it within a week anyway.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly. I think with training, I think there's a increasingly more of a challenging environment for the trainers because of, I think the terminology that kind of flies around now is economy of attention, right? It's attention economy, i.e. everything's competing for our attention, and there's all these like micro distractions around us, including doom scrolling and what have you, and emails and messengers kind of keep popping up on your screen from your colleagues, even in a classroom setting. So it's just kind of like getting difficult to get people to focus on, learn the content, the material, that, and then B is the, like you just said, repetition, retention, that knowledge retention, what you need to do for knowledge retention. For example, we have boosters in place, but that booster is like an add-on service that we offer. And most organizations, they opt not to purchase it, but it's a tiny thing and it makes a big difference on whatever is going to be retained. But for them, it's kind of like, well, we've purchased the training, right? So that's big tick in the box. Job done. Our people should be smart enough and should take the training seriously enough to, go through their notes. No, but if you prompt them, if you nudge them, that's going to make a difference versus just hoping that they're disciplined enough or they have the self-discipline and rigor to revisit their learnings and their notes and what have you. And yeah, I think, yeah, it's a challenging, increasingly ever so challenging in the times that we're in today. So let me make a segue into something else which you were passionate about. We probably talked about this a good few months ago. I don't know when, but to me, it looks like feels like a very long distant time ago. Around, and again, maybe you don't want to elaborate on this or chat on this publicly, so we could always cut that bit out. Around the Learning Olympics.
the Learning Olympics.
Well, something around. Well, was that not the official name? There was definitely.
I think you may be speaking about the Ultimate L&D Showdown or Throwdown, the ULT, which it kind of evolved from that idea. And you and I had spoken about this opportunity to be able to bring learning professionals together from different places
Yes.
and kind of have them compete. I did.
Yes.
I shared the original idea with you and gave you some documentation, just some preliminary notes around this. Well, this is going to happen.
It's happening. Perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's going to happen at the Training Magazine conference in Orlando next year in 2026, February 25th. I'm co-hosting with Jasmine Webster, she's currently the ATD chapter president out of St. Louis, but she'll be phased out by then. And she and I are working on this Ultimate L&D Throwdown, in which
Okay, that's the official name now. Okay,
correct.
Ultimate L&D Throwdown. Okay, fine. I stand corrected. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, that's
Yeah.
okay.
But now I know, specifically what you're speaking about. And what we plan to do is take random people. This version that we're going to do at the Training Mag conference is only a play test, as we're calling it. It is a shorter version of what we see as a much bigger thing. So in 3 hours, we are going to bring people together, put them on teams, people who have not met before, give them a problem to solve, and then through these levels, the different, what do you call them, levels for lack of better words right now. In each round is the word that I was looking for. In each round, they're going to be responsible for achieving a specific thing. So in the beginning, they're going to get a case study. They're going to have to put together a needs analysis. And then once they've determined the needs, then they're going to create a solution. And then in the final round, they're going to deliver that solution. And with the 3 hours, we won't have as much time, but we're going to give them the opportunity to at least share with us the idea of the way that this solution would be delivered. And I'm really excited about the different outcomes that we may see. There's so many possibilities, especially when we bring people together from all these different places who've never worked with one another, but then fostered an environment of collaboration and creativity.
Yes.
So that's what the ultimate L&D Throwdown is going to be all about. February 25th in Orlando at the Training Magazine Conference. I hope that you can be there, because I don't know when this airs, and then there'll be people who watch it in 2 years from now randomly and was like, wait a minute, when did this happen?
When?
But
Where?
it
By
would be
that time, in
great.
2 years, I think it's going to blow up, Charles. I
I
think this
hope
thing is going to blow
so.
up. So, no, and we'll get this published quite swiftly, I believe. So, there will be an opportunity for people to hopefully pick this up in time and make necessary arrangements. I say that, but who can attend? Like, who's it for? Am I allowed to come and compete, or do I send someone from my organization to go and represent my organization? How does it work?
Anybody can participate. We would love anybody to participate. Obviously, you'd want to have some L&D experience, but what we hope to do is put together teams of people, and we'll vet individuals ahead of time so that a team doesn't end up with a bunch of people who only know training delivery, for example. So we want to be able to create teams that have someone with at least some general expertise in the instructional design piece, in the consulting piece, in the delivery piece, and maybe even the measurement piece, just so you can have more of a complete team of individuals who can go all the way through this challenge and create some type of a solution that will please the judges that we have on hand. But we are looking for participants as judges. We're looking for contestants. We're looking for audience members who will have certain roles to play during the activity itself. So it's not going to be an audience just sitting around watching these people engage in this throwdown, but the audience will also have to do some things along the way during this. So it's going to be a great time. And the bigger picture is that we'll get to do it at a conference for maybe a 2 or 3 day pre-conference event.
Perfect.
Where they could work all night if they want to. There's sponsors, we'd have wheels and special guests and all of that. We already are using these elements of gamification that have been taught to us through Sententia gamification. And we want wheels. If you guys have a version of the Food Network, and I know on those versions of the Food Network, if you're not seeing the exact same shows that we see, you're at least seeing those contests where people run through the supermarket and they purchase items to make a dish, and then they have to roll some dice and find out that they can't use the main ingredient that they were going to put in the dish, and those types of challenges that are thrown. Right.
Yeah. Just like in real life,
what we
your resources that you were thinking about deploying, they get taken away for another project, or a new regulation comes up, so that completely changes your plan that you had in mind. Just like real life. I love it.
Yep. All that is going to be there.
I love it. Okay.
Got to be a big wheel. There has to be a wheel that we spin also. I'm seeing big wheels and big dice. It's a good time, and I hope you can be there. I told you first because I wanted you to be prepared to get yourself to Orlando in February.
Yes, which would be a good season, right? So fine. Okay, noted. I will look into how I can make it possible with everything else going on. But thanks for that. No, this is really exciting, actually. Love it. Really good. And let's move on to, if we don't, I think, we would feel almost, or our listeners would feel almost out of place. Now we're in an era defined by AI. So I've used those two letters, haven't I, back to back? Finally, I think, almost an hour in. And so in this day and age with AI this, AI that kind of comes out the woodworks everywhere, rapid change, constant noise. what single mindset do you believe every leader will need to build in their organization? So we did kind of touch in culture a little bit. And B, every employee will need to do for truly for a truly kind of learning centered culture. And why do you think this mindset is perhaps overlooked more often than not?
Yeah. It's not an official term, but I think the curious mindset is something that people will need. I approach AI with wonder each time, and I use this phrase at a conference I spoke at recently to say I got into a rabbit hole of wonder, because you start to wonder, can it do this? I wonder if it can do this. And just to share an example that I shared with the group with which I was speaking, I was moving in my house. I was relocating from one geographic area to another one. And so I had to take all the books off the shelf at the home where I was, box them up so that I could bring them where I was going. As I sat there contemplating getting all those books off the shelf, I said, I wonder if I could take a picture of my bookshelf and then load that into an LLM and have it tell me what books I own. And sure enough, that worked. Then I said, I wonder if I could get it to organize them categorically for me, tell me who the authors are and the years that they were published. Sure enough, it did that. So I ended up with this comprehensive library of, there's this database of the books that I have in my library, just from that thought of I wonder if. And there were these iterations that took place. First, I just wanted to know whether I could get a list. That's all I really needed. And because I was given more time, it would have taken me a long time. I don't even know how long it would have taken me to organize those books that way, or even to write out which titles I had. It saved me a ton of time. So then with that time, I said, I wonder if I can do the next thing. I wonder if. And that's what we have to understand about the AI, is that it's giving us time to do other things. It doesn't necessarily mean that now that the task is complete, I can go goof off or sit at my desk and get paid to do nothing for the rest of my 8 hours because I finished the 8 hour task in 1 hour. But what more can we do in that 8 hours with that
Right.
being the case? How
Yeah.
much more can I contribute to the success of this thing that we're doing with the time that I'm given? So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to walk out of meetings earlier, or that we have to have less people in the meetings or less time invested on it. It just means that we can do more with what we have. And if organizations commit to not becoming complacent and just saying, okay, that task is done, let's lay people off, or let's, not have as many people as we were going to have before, but instead saying, with the current resources that we have, how much bigger can we make this thing? How much more can we achieve as an organization? Let's not prepare for today's work. Let's make sure that we're ready for tomorrow's work. And with that extra tool that we have in the AI, we can even anticipate what tomorrow's work is going to look like. So it's not that we have to kind of wonder, ask it. What do
Yeah.
you think fast food customer service will look like in the next 5 years? And you put that in there and you get an answer. And it may say, you walk into the place and there's a kiosk and you put the order in and the order goes to someone in the back and then it's completed and the customer can have it delivered by a drone to their home. Okay, if that's the case, if we know that's where the industry is going, then let's make sure that we've got the drones. So instead of laying people off or sending them home or whatever, let's make sure that we're prepared for the future, because this thing is happening fast.
It is fast. It is happening fast, isn't it? I think I love the bit you say about just being curious and not shying away from experimenting with it. What I see with a segment of the workforce is, and maybe this applies more so for those that's kind of coming to the tail end of their career, let's say, and it's kind of like, can't be bothered to learn this now. But the thing is, because it's happening so fast, if you don't pick it up, if you don't fiddle around, if you're not kind of competent enough around it, and if you can't, by its crudest terms today, utilize or use ChatGPT to a decent standard level, you are really going to be left behind really quickly. So there is that kind of curiosity, not shy away. Like you say, hey, let me just try it, see what happens. Oh, wow, it can do this. I didn't even know. I could probably use that for something else as well. So that kind of curiosity is one side, and that experimentation. And then the second, I would say, is adaptability. Kind of comes back on the back of that anyway. So the two are kind of actually interlinked. And I talk a lot around agile institutions, agile leadership, agile organizations. And when I say that, it's not about, hey, do they deploy agile methodology? It's more about agile mindset. And one of the key ingredients about success in this ever so rapid and changing world is you have to be agile. Okay, what does that really mean? It means you're adaptable to things changing, because things change really quick, really fast, in the workplace, in your personal life, everything, right? So it's that adaptability quadrant. So it's almost like, you have IQ, EQ, now AQ, and there's a tool we've developed around this that we sometimes utilize in these workshops around agility, and I think you're right. So these two are really big in the world of AI and what that's going to do or impact the future of work. I think no one really knows. I do a lot of work around this. No one really knows where it's kind of going. It's predictions of all sorts, but even like, let's say, the very prominent landmark figures around this topic cannot be certain. So fascinating space. Let me ask you maybe last question as we come to the top of the hour. As learning experiences continue to evolve, utilizing AI is one, and I think you've been quite active in trying to adopt AI and find out more around AI in different ways, like you were just explaining. Where do you see the biggest impact AI can make for both learners and organizations?
The biggest impact that AI can make for learners and organizations.
From an L&D, let's kind of maintain the L&D hat and L&D lens.
Yeah. Well, for organizations, it's once again expanding beyond their current states and making sure that we understand that the future is going to look a way that has been predicted, but different than we predicted it. And so I always think about the old Star Trek episodes where you had these communication devices that would allow people to communicate via video from other locations and things like that. And now we're doing it. It doesn't look like it did in Star Trek, but the fundamentals are there. I think back to the movie Demolition Man and some of the things that we saw there. Classic movie. You got to see it if you haven't. There were things that we're doing now that didn't look the way that they look now, but they're here fundamentally. Cloning. I always thought cloning meant that there would be another Artrell sitting here and I could touch him and all of that kind of stuff. Maybe that's coming, but why do I want that to come, right? We could make one if we want to, but what we've done instead is made virtual clones, and it doesn't just have to be one, but you can have multiple ones. My AI showed up in the room before I got here, right? There were versions of me who were already there, ready to start working before my physical presence showed up. And so we've got versions of cloning that exist too. There's the scientific, that biological stuff that's happening too, that whole different topic. But the way it looks within our organizations is that the concepts are there. What you imagine can be a thing if you continue to work towards it and know that it doesn't have to look like we thought it was going to look, but it's going to exist. Your dreams can and probably will exist. And if you're not the ones that put them out there, then somebody else will.
Exactly.
And from a learner perspective, you got to understand it. You at least need to understand it enough to know what others are doing with it. Whether you choose to do it yourself or not, that's up to you, but at least know that these are things that are possible. And at some point, you will realize that there's something that could have saved you time. Me counting the books on my shelf doesn't change the world. I don't think it hurts the world either, though, right? But it did save me time. So for those that are concerned about whether this is going to take us down or whatnot, or they don't want to play a part in that, I get it. And I don't either. But there are some simple tasks that can make our lives much more fulfilling, a lot easier, a lot less stressful if we take the time to understand what the possibilities and capabilities are. So I encourage the learners to just keep wondering, keep wondering,
learning.
keep being curious, right? And keep learning.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Love that. Love that. Okay. Thanks for that. And last question to top it all off. Given your experience, both in life and professionally, if you were to have a conversation with, I don't want to necessarily, ask you the question, the cliche question of what would you tell your, 15, 20-year-old self? Not yourself, but a family relative, let's say, someone you still care about, and that you would like to pass on some wisdom, let's call it. What would you pass on, share? This could be, L&D related, non-L&D related, life related, non-work related, completely up to you.
Yeah. I hope that we all still can be good people, right? I would advise anybody to still be a good person, be respectful of others and things like that, but also to be bold, be resilient, and be agile. And I just captured those as you and I were speaking, because we talked about the boldness in the beginning of me going up on stage, but then the resilience that we need, especially as entrepreneurs and as human beings, when we have this other source of information and intelligence, as we call it, out there who could or could not do things to harm us. But it's really the people who are programming it, or the bad actors that can drive that type of behavior. But then also be agile to know that there are different ways that we can use this technology, ways that we can adapt as a species. And so that as long as we continue to be fundamentally good, I think we don't have to worry about any existential crises if we just keep trying to be good to one another. And I see examples of that all the time. It's great that here in the States, it's Thanksgiving, and you see a lot of that happening with people helping one another. If we can just keep that up too, but then also look for ways to not be painted into the boxes that we might be sometimes painted into, because this world is a huge place. It's a great place. I love being outside of this country as much as I love being inside of this country. I love people from other places as much as I love the people in these places, because I believe that we were all put here for that, right? I don't even want to touch on the overall religion or spirituality or anything like that, but that's what it's rooted in, is I believe that we are here for a reason, and part of that reason is to be good to one another. So
love that. No, it's
that's
really,
where
really
I'd
good.
leave it.
Be good. I love that. Thanks for that, Artrell. I said last question to top it off, but that was like a proper question. Now this is to really cap it off. Where could people get hold of you? What's the best way for them to get hold of you? Get your insights into your views, what you're doing. Is it LinkedIn or?
LinkedIn is that place. I got a website also, www.mukiva.com, and a podcast coming out also. Look for the learning. So I'll be sharing content there too. But the LinkedIn is where I filter most of it. So look at Artrell Williams right there on LinkedIn. Artrell.
I think you're the only one. So it should be quite easy to find. Just like myself, quite unique. So good. Excellent, sir. Appreciate that. Any departing words?
Just thank you. Once again, I appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to hearing more about what you're doing, and I know you and I will talk not just about the work stuff and the AI stuff, but you've got some great stuff going on in life too, and I look forward to hearing about it.
You bet. No, this has been a pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to follow the podcast and share it with someone who might find it valuable. Until next time, stay curious and keep shaping the future of work.